Casey Anthony has been charged with child neglect and criminal obstruction. The 22-year-old woman allegedly told police she dropped her daughter off with the babysitter in June and hasn't seen her since.
When she first came in, all the other inmates started calling her baby killer. They started calling her a whore.
My name is Robin Adams, and I was incarcerated with Casey Anthony. I had entertained the thought of suicide. And the day that I met Casey Anthony, my whole life changed. We had a genuine friendship. I felt like I was unjustly being held, so who am I to say that someone else isn't? This is actually a letter from Casey to me. The mail, the marriage proposals, I just never compared my life to hers. How could you?
She was a party girl. She was so attractive.
When I learned who she was,
Police have charged Kaylee's mother, Casey, with her murder.
it made me start questioning, why is there no emotion?
She looked at me with a blank stare.
That's the full definition of a sociopath. Casey told me things that she has never told anyone. She said, that's not my daughter. She's like, they're just not looking in the right place. That's not her. I said, did you have anything to do with this? I could see how scared she was of the truth. We're talking about a little baby. Is that the bag? I knew information that no one else knew.
Knowing Casey Anthony did ruin my life.
I've never told this story before. I would spend most of my time counting bricks on the walls and just wondering what I ever did to deserve to end up in a 6x4 jail cell. And the only thing that I had was time. It's still very difficult to talk about. I had lost everything.
In 2008, Robin Adams seemed to have it all. A lovely home near Orlando, Florida, 2 children she adored from a previous relationship, a police officer husband to whom she'd only been married 1 month. But that all changed when an undercover sting revealed her husband was operating an illegal marijuana growing business. When he was arrested, Robin went down with him. She was convicted on drug and weapons charges, her first offense, and was sentenced to 10 years behind bars. It is here she will meet one of America's most infamous inmates, and life will take a very strange turn.
My name is Robin McDonnell, formerly Robin Adams, arrested July 21st, 2008, and I was incarcerated with Casey Anthony.
Casey, why did you wait so long to report your daughter's disappearance?
Where's your baby?
July 16th, 2008. It's been a month since her daughter's disappearance, and Casey Anthony's arrest becomes a major media event. She is charged with giving false statements to police regarding the disappearance of 2-year-old Kaylee. The trial of Casey Anthony will become one of the most followed cases in modern American history, resulting in a verdict that is hotly debated to this day. But to Robin Adams, who arrives at the Orange County Jail just a week after Casey Anthony's arrival, little is known about the pretty young inmate she only gets glimpses of at first.
I didn't even know who she was at first. I remember seeing The Search and George and Cindy pleading on television, on all the news channels, to just bring their granddaughter home.
We know Kaylee's alive, we know she's out there, and we're not giving up.
Casey was never the focus.
To Robin, Casey Anthony is just one of roughly 380 inmates. Younger than most, perhaps. Attractive. Physically fit. But Robin notices early on how Casey seems to be singled out as a target by other inmates.
People would scream at her, call her names, and I never did that. I would just wave to her. I was upstairs and she was downstairs, and we were across from each other. And She would wave to me and then I would wave back, and you just ask each other if you're doing okay, you know, with hand signals, like, are you okay? And then I would say yes, and then back and forth.
According to jail policy, Casey Anthony is not supposed to have any communication with other inmates because she is in protective custody. So Robin is surprised and flattered when Casey goes beyond mere courtesy to take a personal interest in her.
I don't know why she took a liking to me. She was out one morning and she just signaled to me that she wrote me and she put it in a book. And then she held up the book and showed it to me.
As an inmate at the Orange County Jail, Robin has limited access to news outlets, so no connection is made to the mysterious young stranger trying to send her a secret note.
I wasn't really sure what her deal was.
Besides, Robin is preoccupied with her own nightmare, from which there seems to be no escape.
When I got sentenced to a minimum mandatory 10 years, 120 months, that was the first and the only time that I had ever even entertained the thought of suicide. Yeah. I had never been in trouble before, never been arrested, never sat in a jail cell. And because of who my husband was, they were not willing to be lenient on me at all. All hopes of me going home to my children are gone for 10 years. Gone. My kids were gonna grow up without me and not have a mom.
Visiting prison today, the haunting memories come flooding back for Robin.
So this is, you could see under here where people had pictures taped and they had, you know, either toothpaste or something holding their pictures up so when they laid back that they could see their family. You can still see that where the paint is just peeling off because over time, so many pictures have been taken down and put up. God, I remember I used to have so many pictures of my kids. And I would lay down and I would just stare at them and stare at them. God, just praying that I would go home. I never thought that I would do so much time.
In such confinement, inmates yearn for communication and develop crude methods to do so.
Inmates would talk to each other through the vents. They would stand on something to reach the vent. Usually it was over the toilet, and that would echo throughout every cell. Casey used to complain a lot about her not being able to sleep because people would talk in the vents, and of course the sound travels. Everybody heard your business. Everybody heard what you were talking about.
Everyone, including the guards.
My name is Sylvia Gonzalez, formerly known as Sylvia Hernandez. I was the correctional officer that worked at the Orange County Jail, where Casey Anthony was housed. I was the first correctional officer to receive her. They told me she was high profile. They just brought her in. They sat her down at the table. She tried to cross her legs, but she couldn't because of the shackles. And she looked at me with a blank stare. And she waited until I was done with my paperwork. And then I unshackled her. I took her cuffs off and I gave her her stuff. She went in her room and she sat down and didn't say a word.
In the interest of safety, Sylvia makes a habit of researching every inmate that comes in. That includes both Casey Anthony and Robin Adams.
I look up every inmate that comes into my dorm to see what I'm working with. Casey Anthony, I didn't even know who she was. I thought she was just a regular inmate until I looked her up.
Sylvia discovers that Casey Anthony, still just a suspect in her daughter's disappearance, lied to investigators when questioned, sending them on a wild goose chase that ends nowhere.
She lied to the cops. She lied to her parents. I was like, this beautiful girl, how can she, kill her own daughter? Robin stood out to me because when she came in, she was a hot mess with her head down, crying. You couldn't really see her eyes. That's how swollen her eyes were. And without even looking her up, without even knowing her, I had this feeling like she shouldn't be there.
This one officer was different. Nothing like the other guards or officers. She was very encouraging and let you know that she cared about you as an individual, not just an inmate.
I am not God to judge. If you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. And Robin Adams never disrespected me.
3 women brought together by fate to a place sealed off from the outside world, where secrets begin to emerge.
Their lawyer-client relationship was a bit too friendly for my taste.
And while Robin learns the kind stranger she's been signing to is the mother of the much-publicized missing toddler, she has no reason to suspect foul play. But by the time Casey becomes the most hated woman in America, will Robin already be under her spell?
It was bad. Casey told me things that she has never told anyone.
After an exchange of hand signals from their cells, Orange County jail inmates Robin Adams and accused murderer Casey Anthony, who have yet to speak, begin exchanging secret letters hidden in a book that gets carded to and from their cells. But communication of this type is strictly forbidden.
We would ask each other, "Did you write me?" "Yes, it's in the book." Casey would take a book, put a letter inside, and then return that to the book cart. There was one specific book that we both chose to use, and it was called Let's Do Away with August. And we did become friends in August. And there are no pictures, there's nothing to really draw you in. It was an old, ragged book. And I actually have the original book at home.
In order to keep their burgeoning friendship a secret, Casey and Robin agree to flush their letters down the toilet after they've been read. But Robin quickly begins to cherish their contents, so she starts saving them. Today, some 258 pages survive, many of which have never before been seen on television.
This is actually a letter from Casey to me, one that never got turned in for whatever reason. And this is how we used to communicate.
The letters start off with friendly banter and lighthearted complaints about their confinement.
I'm boycotting my glasses. The sexy librarian look doesn't go well with navy blue scrubs. A shame.
Robin's letters back to Casey are warm and affectionate, and Casey seems to thrive on the positive attention. An unspoken friendship has been established, and they trust that what they've written will remain confidential.
They were both in the same predicament. They were both lonely. And I guess they both knew that they couldn't trust any other inmate.
So Robin and Casey develop code names for each other, as well as for their empathetic prison guard, Sylvia, so as to protect her identity. Robin is Cookie.
She would call me Cookie because the food was so disgusting. That's the only thing I would eat.
Casey is Muffin.
She loved those muffins, and so I would always give her the muffin and she would give me her cookie.
And Sylvia is Shannon.
Her nickname was Shannon because I never wanted any repercussions to fall back on Sylvia. So we just named her Shannon.
Sylvia, AKA Shannon, is charged with keeping the peace among inmates, especially when rumors begin to swirl about why Casey Anthony is there.
They started calling her baby killer. They started calling her a whore. That's when I had to go into each dormitory, and I had to talk with each and every one of them. I was like, it's bad enough she's going through this ordeal, so let's act like adults, and let's leave the young lady alone. And so that's when they started realizing how beautiful she was. And they would even tell me, oh, she's beautiful. What is she doing in here? She could have done so much better. She could have done something with her life. She could have been a model. She's so pretty. And I was like, I don't know.
As the case builds notoriety on the outside, Casey Anthony begins to gain admirers.
She had lots of mail. We would bring her bags of mail. She had fans. She had marriage proposals. I mean, she showed me a couple of her letters.
She was getting all kinds of mail from people that she had no idea who they were.
Number 2 takes the cake. Bodybuilder, Italian. Again, very good looking. He sends cards and letters proposing marriage. I'm his princess. He wants to marry me now, and he'll take care of me. Really? Is this what celebrities have to deal with? Yikes.
Casey and Robin are becoming incredibly close. As Sylvia becomes aware of their blossoming friendship, the idea of a romantic relationship between the two naturally enters her mind. Inmates aren't allowed to have sexual contact with visitors or anyone while in custody. But when it comes to sexual activity behind bars, Sylvia has seen her share.
Inmates had a lot of ways of getting away with sex when they go take a shower. If the guard doesn't control the amount of inmates going into the shower, they will go in there up to 10 at a time to throw the guard off while 2 or 3 couples are having sex in the shower. I'm very observant. So I knew by observing them in the day room whose girlfriend with who.
However, there is no evidence to suggest that Casey and Robin's relationship was anything more than platonic.
I was so consumed with so much more that was lacking from my life than intimacy. Casey is pretty notorious for being promiscuous, and I would say if it was suppressed, that would be an understatement. And I do feel like her relationship with Jose Baez was a definite outlet to find that intimacy again.
Jose Baez, Casey Anthony's high-profile attorney, pays frequent visits to the Orange County Jail. While there is no evidence to suggest there was an inappropriate relationship between them, Sylvia and Robin have their suspicions.
Their lawyer-client relationship was a bit too friendly for my taste, a bit too friendly. As soon as I would say, Casey, get ready, Jose Baez is here to see you, her eyes would light up. She would smile. She would go in the mirror and, start doing her hair, getting herself ready and making sure her blues were clean. And I was like, wow, she really wants to see this one.
She loved him. She was very much in love with him. But he was married and had a kid, and at the time his wife was pregnant. Casey was not happy.
Casey and Robin offer comfort to each other in their letters.
We were both in that same situation where we had nothing to turn to. We had no one to believe in, no one to trust.
In Robin's case, she finds the betrayal by her husband the hardest of all to accept.
My husband of a month was an undercover narcotics agent that had gone bad. He was doing some illegal things under the table that even I didn't know about until the Friday before we were arrested. I don't think that I deserve to go away for a minimum mandatory sentence of 10 years. That's been the hardest part for me to deal with, is that he never tried to stand up for me in any way.
Casey's support and sympathetic ear come at the height of Robin's vulnerability. But when other inmates catch on to this friendship, they attempt to intervene.
There was an inmate there serving a life sentence, and she saw that we were passing letters in the book, and she, with hand signals, just said, she pointed downstairs and said she killed her baby.
But Robin has no reason to believe what she deems is just a prison rumor.
It wasn't until I called my dad one night and he asked if I was having any kind of interaction. I told him that I was, writing letters back and forth to this girl, Casey Anthony. And I think he said, holy, you need to be careful.
Robin is made aware that Casey is a suspect in her daughter's disappearance. But by that point, she gives her best friend in lockup the benefit of the doubt.
Even then, it was the baby. They still could not find Kaylee. The story was that she was still with Zenaida Gonzalez. She was still with the nanny.
Zenaida Gonzalez is the name Casey gives to police of a babysitter she claims kidnapped Kaylee. Detectives will determine that no such babysitter ever existed.
I felt like I was unjustly being held, So who am I to say that someone else is or isn't? But we were already writing, I was already just happy to have that companionship with someone. We had that mutual understanding that we just wouldn't judge each other.
As secret letters to Robin begin to flow from Casey Anthony's hand, they become more and more personal and unfiltered. She even describes in detail sexual abuse she claims she suffered at the hands of her brother.
I woke up night after night with my sports bra lifted up over my chest. Or if I had on a regular bra, it would be unhooked.
These allegations have never been corroborated. In the same letter, Casey implies that her father also abused her, which her family will vehemently deny. But knowing that anything she says has the ability of getting out, is it possible she's using Robin to test out her future defense in court? Now that Casey has shared alleged childhood secrets with Robin, their sisterly bond is stronger than ever. But communication through clandestine letters is no longer cutting it. Casey and Robin crave face-to-face contact, which is against the rules. So they use the kindness of guard Sylvia Hernandez to their advantage, and ultimately, to her downfall. And later, the red flags in Casey's letters become more than Robin can ignore.
If my son or daughter is missing, I'm not gonna wait to report them missing. That in itself was a red flag. What did you mean?
After roughly 3 months in county jail for child neglect and obstruction of justice, Casey Anthony is indicted for the murder of her daughter Kaylee in October 2008. Unaware of this, fellow inmate Robin Adams has been secretly communicating with Casey, her new best friend, through letters smuggled in the pages of a book.
I never believed that she was responsible for Kaylee at first. The story was Kaylee just didn't come home one night from Zenaida's house, the babysitter. But she knew that she was okay, knew that she was safe.
Robin yearns to meet Casey face to face, and the only person who can arrange that is Correctional Officer Sylvia Hernandez. And only then, by bending the rules.
I remember one time I just asked her if I can talk to Casey.
She was like, Officer Hernandez, can I speak to Casey really quick?
And she said, yeah.
And I was like, sure, go ahead. But then keep it moving because you gotta take a shower and then you gotta come back before the supervisor comes and catches you there. I don't wanna get in trouble and I don't want you to get in trouble.
This is against policy. But Sylvia, it turns out, at least to Robin, is the guard with a heart of gold.
She did have a heart of compassion, and she was human and wasn't afraid to show it.
She's a mother of 2. She just got married. I worked, enough years with inmates to know who's genuine and who's not genuine. And Robin was genuine. I felt her warmth. I felt her humbleness.
She just allowed us to have that interaction with each other.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I let her talk to Casey Anthony because they were friends.
When I first met Casey, like person to person, we held hands and we just talked and we both cried, and it was just a stressful time. And being able to have someone else there with you as you go through this stressful time, it was something I was extremely grateful to have.
You're the only person I trust here.
Casey and I had lots of talks about why she was there and about why I was there.
Casey proclaims her innocence to Robin, but she tends to do it in legal terms rather than in human and emotional ones.
One of my attorneys said it best. This case isn't circumstantial. It's completely speculative. Look at other missing persons cases. Name one that hasn't had something that seems odd.
Maybe Robin just didn't want to believe that her jail friend could have killed her own child. So when word gets out that Robin and Casey are friends, other inmates react viciously. The two are ostracized, but Robin sticks by her new friend.
She would walk to the showers and people would scream at her, murder, and She never talked back to them. She never stood up for herself. She always stayed quiet, and it did not faze her at all. Well, I'm sure it did. She just didn't let it show.
At least, not to Robin.
There was one night, I don't know if it was a letter that she read or if it was something about her case. All I know is that she was making a lot of noise and throwing everything around her cell. Books, the magazines, all the letters, all over the place. And I'm like, are you okay? She was like, I'm fine. She sat down, crossed her legs, and that's it. She didn't say anything else to me.
There was nothing that Casey and I didn't talk about. We would talk about everything. Everything.
But with Casey's increasing candor comes disturbing red flags regarding her missing daughter.
Casey wrote to me, I was going to take Kaylee and move away. Unfortunately, my plans got beyond tangled when Zanny wouldn't tell me where she and Kays were. I had asked her to take Kays for a few days so I could put all of our stuff together. Money I had saved, new clothes, new everything. That's why I waited to report her missing. If my son or daughter is missing, I'm not gonna wait to report them missing just because I'm trying to buy new clothes for them and, make arrangements to move away. That in itself doesn't make sense. So that was a red flag. What did you mean?
But this is only the beginning of behavior that starts to cast doubt in Robin's mind about the innocence of her close friend. And something is about to happen that will turn the entire case upside down.
I knew information that no one else knew.
Do you know what that information was?
I do.
Orange County Jail, Orlando, Florida, 2008. Robin Adams, imprisoned on a marijuana charge, has developed a secret sisterly bond with Casey Anthony. Robin, who's been locked up and unable to watch the news, has learned from her father that Casey is the main suspect in her daughter's disappearance.
Now the focus is on her. She was on the cover of People magazine, and she showed me all of that. She's like, I never asked for any of this. She wasn't upset.
The prison guard looking after both women, Sylvia Hernandez, has violated policy by allowing them time together.
I didn't understand what was the problem of, Casey talking with Robin or Robin talking with Casey. They weren't harming themselves. They weren't doing anything. So I let them talk with each other.
Through secret letters and forbidden meetings, the two women have formed an almost sacred bond of trust. They even make plans to drive across America when they're released. But as time passes, Robin begins to see cracks in Casey's otherwise steadfast denial that she harmed her daughter. She's particularly uncomfortable that Casey never reported her daughter missing after being gone a month, but that Casey's mother was the one who made the report.
I never got the feeling that Casey was worried about the whereabouts of Kaylee.
Then, in late November, comes a potential breakthrough in the case.
During my 1 hour out, I remember I went to go watch TV. It was like Sex and the City or something. And then when that ended, the officer didn't come back and get me right away. I saw the first few minutes of the 11 o'clock news. And that's when I saw that divers found a bag of bones in this river. And they were questioning if it was possibly Kaylee Anthony. When I came back in, Sylvia let me talk to Casey, and I said, hey, they just found a bag of bones in the river, and they're questioning if the remains might be Kaylee's. Casey never hesitated. She said, that's not my daughter. She's like, they're just not looking in the right place. That's not her. I said, okay.
They're not gonna find the body because they're not looking in the right place. And I was like, I don't wanna hear anything, Casey.
That was when the flags started to come.
But just weeks later, on December 11th, 2008, 3-year-old Kaylee Anthony's skeletal remains are found wrapped in a blanket inside a laundry bag in a wooded area near the Anthony family's home. And this time, Casey's reaction is very different.
When they gave her the news that they found Kaylee's remains, it was bad. They took her to medical. She couldn't breathe. She was having an anxiety attack, a panic attack.
She didn't act like a regular mother where, oh, they found my daughter and she's dead, you know, crying, bawling. No, no, no. Her behavior at that time was like, oh, I got caught.
I think she was scared.
Around this time, authorities discover that Robin has been a confidant of Casey's and have questions for her. They do not yet know that the jailmates have exchanged hundreds of pages of letters.
Apparently, I knew information that no one else knew.
Do you know what that information was?
I do. When Orange County investigators asked what I knew about Kaylee Anthony, I said I only knew what Casey told me. And they said, well, what was that? I said, just that they had found her in a laundry bag wrapped in a Winnie the Pooh blanket. That information wasn't even out.
Viewing photographic evidence from the case today, Robin sees for the first time an image of the bag Kaylee was found in.
Is that the bag? That bag was like really hard for me to look at. Now I understand why the investigators brought me in to be a part of this case. I didn't know really what was right or wrong anymore. We're talking about a little baby, a 2-year-old baby girl, and her life was taken from her.
Robin now believes her friend is a killer, and she has information that might help solve the mystery of Kaylee's death. Will she betray her best friend behind bars? After nearly 9 months at the Orange County Jail, Robin Adams is preparing to be transferred to a federal prison in Tallahassee to serve out the remainder of her 10-year sentence on marijuana charges. But before she goes, she has one last question to ask Casey Anthony, one she has never asked her point blank.
I asked her the night that I was leaving, the night I knew I was being transferred. I said, did you have anything to do with this? And she paused for a minute and she held my hand and she just shook her head no.
Did you believe her at that time?
No. No, I did not. We never talked after that again.
In April of 2009, Robin Adams is transferred to a federal prison in Tallahassee. A week later, prosecutors announced that they will seek the death penalty against Casey Anthony. At some point prior to Casey's trial in 2011, another inmate at Orange County comes forward with the knowledge that Robin and Casey were pen pals. The implications are huge for the two, as well as correctional officer Sylvia Hernandez, who helped facilitate their communication.
They knew that I had correspondence from Casey, and they knew that an officer was allowing us to speak. Then they said, and if you are withholding any information from us, then we can charge you with withholding information on a homicide investigation. And the term for that was 5 years. Well, I'm not going to do another 5 years. I'm also not going to release the officer's name without having an attorney present, and that's exactly what happened.
Investigators subpoena the letters, and Sylvia is suspended for breaching policy pending an internal investigation.
I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I told them, yeah, I let him talk through the beanhole. Yes, I let her cut Robin Adams' bangs because she was looking a hot mess and she was going to court and she wanted to feel good about herself. So why not make her feel human? After their so-called investigation, they determined that they were gonna terminate me.
The revelation that secret jail letters from Casey Anthony exist is leaked to the media. And Robin and Sylvia suddenly find themselves a part of the news. Sylvia herself faces potential charges stemming from her allowing Robin and Casey to communicate behind bars.
I never wanted any repercussions to fall back on Sylvia.
They were just trying to nail me for anything. And when we got there to the hearing that day with the chief was like, "Why are we here?" Because he started reading the reports. He was like, "Are we here for passing ladders?" So the chief got really upset and said, "We are wasting county money and county time on this. Give this young lady what she needs." And I said, "Chief, what I need is for my termination to be reversed to resignation." And he was like, "Are you sure you don't want to go back to work?" I was like, "I'm going into law enforcement." So he told him, "Give this lady her resignation." And he even shook my hand and gave me a hug, wished me the best of luck, and stated, "If you ever want to come back to Orange County, you're more than welcome."
Then came the trial. I was brought back to Orange County for Casey's trial, and that's where I sat for well over 3 months, waiting for her trial to start and then desperately waiting for it to end.
Robin is never called to testify, nor does she communicate with Casey during this time. Casey's trial is a national spectacle. When the jury takes less than 11 hours to find Casey not guilty of all felony charges, the public is shocked.
Somewhere out there, the devil is dancing tonight.
The lack of evidence and the doubt raised by defense attorney Jose Baez is enough to win an acquittal. Back in prison in Tallahassee, Robin records her reaction to the verdict in a journal. She is, quote, outraged that she was cleared of all charges, unquote, especially since Robin herself is serving 10 years for, quote, a trumped-up case of marijuana seeds.
Oh, she was always confident that she would be released and that she would not be charged with anything.
Casey Anthony knew how she did. She knew how to move. Until the end result, she got what she wanted.
Since Casey's confidential letters are ultimately not used against her, Robin receives no benefit from turning them over to authorities. The years crawl by as Robin serves out her sentence at a Tallahassee, Florida prison, and she misses her children immensely.
It was like having a hole cut right through your heart and having a cold wind blow right through it. And that's how I lived for a really long time.
She is finally released on October 15th, 2016. Now, unbeknownst to Robin, and after more than 12 years without contact, she is about to be reunited with the prison guard who showed her compassion during her darkest days.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
You changed, Sylvia! How are you?
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
You're so beautiful.
Thank you. You're gonna make me cry, girl. You're gonna make me cry.
I just don't want to let go of you.
I looked for you.
Yeah.
I did. I looked for you.
I moved from there, from Groveland. And then I got divorced, so I went back to my last name and...
Reunited as friends instead of guard and inmate, Robin and Sylvia immediately gravitate to the one person who inexorably links them, Casey Anthony.
I carried that weight of knowing the truth, but I was instantly discredited because I was an inmate.
To date, Robin has never looked for Casey, preferring instead to put that chapter of her life in the rearview mirror. Revisiting the jail environment one final time together is difficult for both Robin and Sylvia.
It's just like the room I was in for so long. I don't like this.
But free of prison bars and the lies of someone she once called friend, Robin has gained perspective into what freedom really means and how it differs between her and Casey Anthony.
I'm home. I have my children. I have my family. I have someone I love so deeply that stands by my side every second of every day. What more can anyone ever ask for? There's always clear skies ahead.
Since Casey Anthony was acquitted on murder charges and no other suspect has been arrested, it is unlikely we will ever know exactly what happened to Kaylee or why. Both Robin and Sylvia have their theories.
I feel like the death of Kaylee was an accident. I feel like the disposing of her remains was definitely premeditated.
I think it was probably intentional. She was so busy wanting to go out party. At the same time, her mother was down her throat to be more responsible. And because the mother loved the baby so much, I think it was intentional.
That's interesting that you would say that you thought it was intentional, because you and I have never talked about it.
I know.
Ever.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you would think that it was intentional.
In many ways, their differing opinions reflect those of millions of Americans. To this day, Casey has both supporters and detractors.
Even if Casey was not found guilty of murder, she definitely escaped the judicial system.
She did.
People may never get the truth. If she does carry that guilt, I believe that she's determined enough to not allow anyone else to see it. I think that people can live freely outside of their prison cell and never truly be free.